Okay,
Woo!
here we go.
All right. Well, back where you're starting, Jenna, you were saying something?
Oh, I've kind of lost my train of
Oh, well, I
thought
remember
now.
where you were. You were talking about, I had mentioned something akin to the line that like in our personal interactions, when it wasn't there's no cameras rolling, when there's no media or whatever, um, both me and Dworkin were both very soft and vulnerable with people in our personal lives and with other women, et cetera, despite what people like to claim about
Oh
us.
yeah. So then just reaffirming the need to like go out there. Like if you don't own a Dworkin text, get one. If you do own your Dworkin text, like repeat back to the material, repeat back to that text for reference.
We
I
have a world
first
to win.
started almost 10 years ago reading Dworkin, and I've since reread it because it's necessary. And every time something new happens, it reminds me of this or of this part
Mhm.
because so much is happening at such a rapid pace now that it's a powerful tool in rhetoric and conversation.
Absolutely.
Many people who have interviewed her, met her, known her, have talked about how gentle and funny she was in life. I mean, she had a bullhorn presence, a lectern, oratorical voice that is you can hear on video. But she was actually such a deep listener and such a careful person in her care in her relations with people. I mean, I fell in love with her not because she hated men, you know.
Oh yeah. No, like can we dispel that little controversy that Dworkin hated men, especially that we're here interviewing, talking
The
to
only
you.
man who'll ever be here.
Dworkin wanted to help men. She was analyzing the ways that both women and men were
First male
hired.
rights activist, if you will.
So that's
That's
that's right next to the turf accusations, right? That's as old as Dworkin's been writing, because she's a man hater. And I mean, she would have every reason to. If she wanted to be a virulent man hater, she could have been. Like she endured her struggles. That wasn't her analysis, though. Her analysis was not man hating.
well,
That
since we're talking about men, let's center male perspective, male rights, if you will, for a minute here, and talk with John about, me and Jenna, we're both trans women, so I guess ostensibly they would consider us queer. And John, I wanted to just ask this question because as you know, or as you've heard, kink, BDSM, sadomasochism is very common in communities that talk about, queer, talk about and are queer. And would you say that if two men and two women, really, this is just a question, were to engage with kink and in that way, would you say that it is the same, like quantifiably?
The same meaning.
The same being patriarchal, an expression of male violence, of male supremacy.
Well, I think the way in which male supremacy can infuse eroticism is something that everybody in their life will need to sort out at some point. And so-called kink is often play acting of the dominance that constructs male supremacy. Arguably, no one is hurt. Arguably, it is consensual. But the interior eroticism of it, the visceral stake in dominating somebody else, is what's the it's the water we swim in, you know,
Mhm.
as a culture,
so
as a
it's
society, as a species. And I think Andrea, I can't recall if she ever wrote this. I think she did, but she talks about the importance of women to overcome their masochism, something of which she knew a lot about in her life. She
yeah.
she went there, she lived there, and she knew that it was not the right place for her to live. And I think one of the reasons, I can tell you why I fell in love with her. I'm not sure why she fell in love with me, but I don't discount the
Um,
fact that I wasn't about to push any buttons of her masochism. It wasn't in me. And I don't know if
So
that
you
answers
would
your
say it
question,
is.
Tara.
So
I would
I was
say,
just you would say yes, it is an expression of male supremacy in violence. I'm just getting a straightforward answer for the audience here,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, to the extent that that suffuses everybody's erotic imagination and practice,
Hmm.
unless you
I mean,
are determined
it's
to
it's
resist it.
almost it's almost an expression of mental occupation under the
Oof.
sexual systems we experience. So if it's a simple yes or no, it's going to be in the lived reality of kink spaces. And generally, when there's talk of the sadomasochistic nature, there's almost two conversations about it. There's the advocates who say, oh, I found this way that was done safely, consensually, for fun. And then there's the horror stories. And I think what we're in reference to is how cross culturally those horror stories pop up. But obviously there may be like exceptions where John was talking about earlier where it's practiced safely or practiced consensually, but you're still personifying that occupation. It's just theaterized now, but still the same
Hmm.
movements, it's still the same behavior.
Something that John, you would know as a theater director, something akin to that line, right?
Yeah, I think that it's important to realize that orgasm is not a truth test of anything, really. We're
Oh,
wired,
whoa,
Put
that's
that
a
on a
great
shirt.
line. That's a great line.
we're wired to have them
I
in all
love
kinds of
that.
ways. It doesn't, just because you have an orgasm doesn't mean you're you're at some kind of egalitarian utopia space. You might be, but you also
That's
might
very
be far
poignant.
away. I mean,
Beautiful.
Yeah,
think someone called it orgasm politics. That is to say, centering
Oh, that's a heater and a half. I love that.
um,
right. That's
centering the orgasm as the
the be all and all good.
truth test of everything, and it isn't. That's just not
Men
how
have
we
been
be.
gratifying hurting women for millennia. Like
Look
that
at
Yeah,
that.
story
Look,
that
see, John, see, I see you piping up when these questions come. Look at that. You're like snapping back into your young age with all these. Look at all that. Let me tell you, let me tell you now. Let me say it fully and honestly. These questions are going to become more and more pressing as the Trump administration partners up with porn companies. Jenna, I don't know if you saw, they're in talks with MindGeek to have more traditional porn for the masses. Very interesting stuff.
that's gonna fix porn is if we just it needs to be more traditional,
I
the
see.
good old
Well,
conservative values.
yeah, the issue with porn is actually that the women are looking a little different nowadays.
No, scary, scary and terrifying times are ahead for us. I guess if we're on final,
Oh, Jenna, you just cut out.
oh no, hello, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
you cut out. You cut out.
I was saying as we're wrapping up, John, did you have any final questions, any sentiments you wanted to express, anything you wanted to portray to our follower base?
just to say that in a sense, you two are my fondest wish when she died. That
Ah,
her words would live on, and that they would become embodied in younger people in next generations. I had that wish, I had that imagining, I had that kind of picture in my mind that she would survive and she would go on. I miss her terribly. I miss her every day.
yeah, no.
But it is a way of knowing her back in life to hear you two talk.
You have no idea how
You
much those are insane.
when you sent me that message that her ideals live on through me, you broke me. I am, for reference, diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. I am not an emotional person, but you broke me. You broke. I was sobbing. I like my girlfriend can tell you, if she was like here right now, she's in the other room. sh- I had the biggest smile on my face I had ever had. I'm still like trying to recover from it because those words meant the world to me. I have one
Mm.
final question for you at the end once we get to that point, but I do want to say just like thank you for everything you and your wife did for the fight for women's liberation and that torch.
Absolutely.
It may have dimmed, but trust me, we got some lighter fluid, baby. We're gonna be all right.
Well, that's the joke is, as you said, Dworkin's legacy lives and it will continue to persevere. Because, I mean, I can only imagine how stubborn Dworkin was in real life, what I get from her off the pages is that was not going to be an easy woman to get gotten rid of. But as it kind of ages gracefully with us, Dworkin's ideals let us champion, let us take that torch and let us keep moving forwards. Because more has to be said, more has to be done. The work never ends.
Listen, WWDD, what would Dworkin do? Okay, listen. Plus, whenever I'm like, should I post this? Well, would Dworkin post this? Yep, she would have already hit the button. Like, the way I see it, there's never a reason to ever waver in our beliefs and what we stand for. I talked about a concept that I took from a branch of Marxism that I refer to as invariance, that feminism doesn't change. Feminism has never changed. Yeah, I saw you smile, Jenna. You knew I was going to bring it up at least once. It's a concept that I took and I repurposed for the sake of feminism. I'm still working towards synthesizing it completely. It's something that it's kind of a pet project of mine, if you will.
Awesome. And you said you had a final question for John?
Yeah. So this is a question that was sent to me multiple different times and was brought up in the TikTok in which you saw me. So, as everyone knows, Andrea Dworkin was Jewish, correct? And with everything going on in the Middle East, with Israel and the like, her position on Israel is not the most, how you say, correct view of how the situation was. Um, as we have known, the genocide has been happening long before Israel's current onslaught. And it's her words there. I believe I have the quote written here somewhere around there. Hold on, let me find it really quickly. Here you go.
Are you talking about the slur that she's a Zionist?
Yeah, I was gonna go there. Yeah.
Her critique of Israel was very deep and complicated. She wrote a piece
Absolutely.
called Israel, Whose Country Is It Anyway? Talked to women in Israel and learned of Holocaust pornography, that is to say, pornography made for Jewish men of the Holocaust.
Mhm.
She was extremely conscious of the discriminating, the hatred of the Palestinians, and she acknowledged that her own family ran in that current. She stood against a lot of that.
She did engage with a bit of how you would say, and this is something which I have to give a little bit of pushback, if that's okay with you, John. Where she did engage in a bit of what people would refer to as soft Zionism, where she didn't really question the idea of the state of Israel.
I think that's probably true. I'm not an expert on this aspect of her work, but I know she thought it had a right to exist, but she thought it had gone really wrong.
And
And
I think it's unfair to hold Dworkin in a criticism that's very final because she's passed away. That as the Israeli, as the Palestinian, I guess is a fair way to put it, situation has developed, that critique is seen in a different light as the decades keep turning. If Dworkin had given the chance to have lived to see more of this situation develop, she may have analyzed these structures and systems to be harmful in ways she never got the chance to take a stance on.
And
So
it is
where
worth
people
noting,
have
of course. Yeah. I'll go ahead, Jennifer, finish that real quick.
So I just always do want to highlight that while the struggles like the Nakba happened decades ago, what specifically is happening in modern day Gaza, the Gazan Holocaust, Dworkin was unaware of. She couldn't have possibly forecast those events so much as she should have been in conversation during her moment with how that was being personified. So like
but
her critique of Zionism needed to be immediate. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
to be fair, I think she put her finger on the way in which Jewish men had been emasculated in the Holocaust and the way in which they were trying to redeem themselves, the
That's
way in which
very
they were trying to overcome it, reproduced all of the worst parts of the ways in which male supremacy creates and constructs male sexual identity. I think she saw that, and
absolutely.
she attributed it to the, I think emasculation is her word, of that sense of the rightfulness in Jewish men to dominate as they had been dominated.
And I
And I
think that
think
it's very important that to note that we back in the
I
day,
should have said
right?
Israeli men. I shouldn't have said Jewish men. I meant
Yeah.
Yeah,
Israeli identity. Excuse me.
no, it's okay. But like what I wanted to say is back in the day, it was a lot harder to get modern news the way we can get it now. I mean, this is worth noting. She couldn't have done it, grabbed her cell phone and done instant amounts of research on every little aspect of how things are going. Um, this is a
Her focus was primarily on these matters of womanhood. That doesn't mean that she couldn't have had a lens or couldn't have been more informed on these positions. But I think it's as John so rightly asserted that she had a finger on the pulse. She understood that the situation would be continue to develop. But what Netanyahu looks like, what this emasculation ended up being such a virulent reaction to
Mhm.
hadn't been fully realized in the way that we now see with such a critical lens.
absolutely. And again, with that question, I wasn't trying to trap you, John, in any type of way. I it was very much like a thing that both I found very important and a lot of people in my audience were going to bring up and question.
The two most common things I hear about Dworkin dismissing her is that she's a Zionist and that she is a TERF. And I don't hold either of those views to be represented in her writing. And I'm heartened to hear that you, John, wouldn't affirm either of those two perspectives. And I think between her writing and you, those are two pretty hardy bulwarks of testimony to assert that those criticisms are not valid.
I appreciate that during when I brought up the Zionist thing, you immediately disavowed Israel and their current actions and confirmed that Dworkin would have as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Could
With
have.
no
I don't know what
hesitation, you did no hesitation. There was no evidence. There was no attempts to defend or deflect. That is perfect. That is perfect. That is a perfect way of viewing it all. I also like have another question with you. If what feminism has a legacy, a historical legacy that draws all the way back. And as we enter the new age with people rediscovering Dworkin and building this new radical feminism, as you know, what I would say one of the last true inheritors of that legacy that you are passing down to girls like me and Jenna, what would you give us in that toolbox? What's in it? What would you say that we need now in the social media age and everything? Do you have anything like you would to use the phrase I used earlier, weapons and words?
Look at how male power is being reified in everything. In other words, when you're analyzing a question, you did this, by the way, Tara, in the way in which you talked about the protection of pornography by people who are calling Andrea a turd. I think that's an important kind of like
Why are
navigational
they saying these
principle.
things? What is the
Or,
reason? Look at what they're saying.
right.
stands
And
to benefit.
if you trace it back to the identity affirmation that can only be done through domination and disparagement and hate in order to feel real, you will find explanatory information along the way. If you're not looking for that through line, that underground current of male supremacist bile,
So what you're saying is
you,
that the girls need to be reading more Tara. I agree. Thank you. I fully agree. Yeah, thank you.
Or a Dworkin.
Yeah, like so when are you going to invite me to write the next forward for the next edition of Dworkin? Well, I need that invite. Where's that?
You're getting
But
a little ahead
all
of
right,
yourself.
all right,
That
okay,
might be heresy.
but
Jesus.
like but I will say this, you said something there, confirmation of identity by domination. Oftentimes one of my biggest groups of detractors are transmasculine men. And Jenna, I know you're already thinking, oh gosh, he's about to go there. Listen, with transmasculine men, oftentimes I have criticized them for the very things you criticized in your book, refusing to be a man. And I am not saying transmasculine men shouldn't be men, but I am saying there are there needs to be ways for them to be able to confirm their identities and who they are without forming their masculinity in this domination. That isn't the only way to be a man. It shouldn't be the only way to be a man. What, as a cisgendered man, what advice would you give to trans men in this regard?
I don't know if there's a right way to say this, but I've always been interested in the way in which trans men could contribute to feminism by not forgetting what would have happened to them had they stayed in the world as a woman. I hope that doesn't sound indelicate, but it seems to me
You
that
don't have to
trans men have a unique insight into how masculinity operates in the world, and they have a choice in terms of how to do it equitably or how to be doing it dominatingly. And what they have is a memory of how it happens to those who are not men in the world. And it seems to me they could carry that memory with them to good results and good purpose. Did that make sense?
Sounds like domination. John, I want to affirm that I think trans individuals carry a certain subverting the gender paradigm that allows this conversation to be reanalyzed in unique ways, both for trans men who are crossing that threshold, that boundary, as well as the trans women who pass them in the way. We wave to each other and go, hello, we walk in the opposite direction. In that way, I think we bring a fresh set of eyes, a new gaze, the allowance to reinterpret these dynamics between these socialized gender roles, because those class arrangements carry a new story. If you're a trans man, you may find yourself in the seat of power in a position to dominate. If you're a trans woman, you might be, there's a sort of uniqueness of finding yourself on the other end of that oppression, that other end of dominance,
You
and
decline the privilege of
recontextualizing it.
patriarchy.
Yeah, yeah, all these
It's brilliant.
privileges and
I love this conversation. It's brilliant.
I feel right now the transmasculine male question, which is a very interesting way of putting it, is a is one of the most pressing issues for building a modern radical feminism, because we have never been in a position in which, well, we have not never, but we are, as trans people enter feminism, we have found ourselves in a position where we need to find a way to make this work for them. Feminism needs to have trans men. It needs them. It's not going to go, they're not going away. That, and listen, as much as they claim I do love them. They're my brothers at the end of the day. Listen, just like they call Dworkin a man hater, trust me, I've received my own fair share there. We need them, and we need to find a way to make this work for them. And we need a trans masculine version of yourself, John. We do. It's true.
you can be a man hater. Just remember, not all men.
Okay. I
You
mean,
might want to edit that.
no, I'm keeping that in. No, I don't know what that is.
Oh
But
boy, that came from.
listen, I will.
I do have to sign off to start getting ready for work. It was a pleasure speaking with you, John. Honestly, this is a delight. You have no idea how much this matters to me. I can't thank you enough.
And
But
John, John, would you like to sign off with anything? Would you like to talk about those new releases before we do this? Let's get this releases out.
Well, okay, I'll pitch.
Show the money spread, show those books off. You got this.
Okay. These are the 3 books that I am so delighted were just reissued a year ago.
Beautiful. That copy of pornography. We love pornography over here, folks, don't we?
And it is such a victory and validation and vindication that these 3 books came back into the world. Anyone who knows Andrea's life knows what an obstacle the publishers were to it. And the fact that it took 20 years, but it happened. And the fruits of that republication, that reissue, are here in this conversation and more in the.
Perfect. I mean, it's the publishers still struggle. You were telling me yesterday, are still awful with trying to get her out. And I mean, can we give a shout out to the publisher?
A little corner has turned. That anthology, Last Days at Hot Slip, got enormous pickup. And
I know, I just got a copy too. I have it in my room.
Oh, it's so good. Fucking adore it. It's all the essential works.
I really recommend it.
I'm gonna send it to you, John. I need you to sign it.
This is
I need you to do that.
My highest recommendation. It gives you everything you need of Dworkin's writings, and then go back through and buy Pornography, Right-Wing Women, because there's not a word I would cut from any of those books, to be clear. But if you have to make the decision, this anthology is simply delightful. It really is.
Jen, I will be cropping you to say to go buy pornography. I will be saying that fully, but I can fully say,
Oh,
like,
that's fine.
I will make sure, me and Jenna will make sure like those books are sold to somebody. That some girl is going to get an Andrea Dworkin book for Christmas from me. I promise you.
Well, based on this conversation, I'll certainly be writing another piece tied to it. Is the new release editions I'll certainly be mentioned. And if I can just convince one girl out there to pick up these books, to go out and buy these books, I'll have done my job.
I
I'm
just
totally
I just
content.
made my last essay I'm ever going to make on radical feminism because I'm moving towards the future of radical feminism. I finished off my series with talking about the past. We're moving towards the future for me. I am I'm done talking about it. And
Well, and
it is my longest piece, a history of radical feminism, a retrospective. It talks about the rise, the fall, and the tragedy. And in these last 10 minutes, I want to take a minute to address people like Janice Raymond, people and the rest of the gender critical feminist. You are not feminist. You're not. You are not. You maybe you were at one point in your lives, but I do not believe at this point you care about women. I've looked into Janice's recent actions. I did a deep dive. For the last couple of years, Janice, you have not done a single thing in service of women. You have done nothing but take shots at other women, women that look like me and Jenna, where we have spent this entire conversation advocate for the legacy you claim to uphold.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, when we determine feminists, we should be cognizant, just like TERFs are, that words have power. And when we call ourselves feminists, we need to be uplifting women and correctly analyzing the threats that women face.
And right-wing
So
women,
my main
Dworkin never
critique,
attacked right-wing women. She's going there to help them. You are not trying to help anybody, Janice. You are, and I'm directly addressing her. That's why I keep saying her name. That is who I'm talking to, because I know she will see this. I know she's very online, and she lives in a state right below me in Massachusetts. So I want you to see this, and I know you will. A feminist doesn't spend all her time attacking women. If you really cared, you would be coming to help.
I mean, I think we need a solidified, unified position on helping women. And I won't waste my time focused on detractors that seem to immobilize us. That's some CIA op behavior. We should be forwarding women's movement, regardless of how you perceive me. That is the core message that I always espouse, because the violence that women face is done by the patriarchy. I am not an expression of, I am not a patriarch. Say what you will of me, the target needs to remain on actions like Epstein Island, actions like the Rape Academy, actions like what's happening in ICE facilities and blue butterfly zones. All of these paradigms of male violence need to be addressed and need to be solved. And that message needs to be our
Andrew
unifying
Tate
cry.
was the biggest influencer. Andrew Tate Clavicular. These are influencers who are John. I don't know if you know who they are. They're very popular streamers
Yeah.
with young men who are violent
Dangerous streamers.
misogynists. And
Yeah.
why with young boys, sorry, not men, boys, children who are espousing male violence, and yet again, people like Janice and gender critical feminists as a whole are focusing on us, on the girls, on the dolls. What are we doing
I'm going to
here?
stay focused on the rising rates of femicide. I'm going to stay focused on such pertinent issues like the manosphere. I am not going to waver just because of these attacks, because I know that Dworkin
Mhm.
didn't waver when she was attacked. She remained a laser light focus, so I will remain laser in my focus. And Janice Raymond is largely irrelevant to me. A transsexual empire was written decades ago. And while it might be used against me, it is not effective in denying me my existence. That won't change. And it won't dissuade me from championing women. Whether or not you suppose that I am one does not change that I will champion women.
At the end of
I
the
just
day,
want to
we care
add
about
that
women.
excuse
Go
me, if Janice Raymond does watch this, and as I'm let people know we were friends once, and now critiques me in print. If she and other people who are trans exclusionary radical feminists by their own accounting watch this, I hope they see how feminist you two are. I hope they understand that you are some of the most feminist people I've ever had a conversation with.
You know,
And
how much that means.
it's like you can't, if your ideology prevents you from seeing that, there's something wrong with your ideology.
We care about women more than anything in the world. I love women. I love women. I really do. I'm a lesbian. I love women. I live with a woman. I recently was engaged a couple days ago. You wish me congratulations. Listen, John, can I have you at my wedding? Can you walk me down the aisle? Can you walk me down the aisle, John?
Right.
It'd be perfect. We love women over here. We always have. We uplift women. We always will. And I mean, I will never stop fighting for Dworkin, for feminism, for any of it.
I simultaneously fight for Dworkin, but I also fight of Dworkin. I'm trained by Dworkin. And I really don't fear in that regard, knowing that any of these waves of feminists, whether we're talking about Beauvoir, whether we're talking about Betty Friedan, whether we're talking about Naomi Wolf, or any of their seminal texts, inform our positions to moving forwards. Their legacies
Oh, Jenna, we
might
have like
not,
2 minutes. Oh, we gotta wrap this up.
perfect. Their legacies are so important for us to champion, and their works have informed how I move forwards in that messaging.
Yeah. So we gotta end this off. John, it was a pleasure having you. Feel free to come on
Thank you.
Such a
anytime.
pleasure, John. Thank you
Anytime,
so
John. You
much.
message me always.
I'm
I'm
I'll
about to
make
tell my
time.
parents and brag I got to talk to you, so you have no
Yeah, and
idea.
like I am like I am so appreciative I got to talk to you. I feel free to reach out anytime. Seriously, go ahead. We love you over here. I'm sure you're gonna get to meet plenty of my young fans because they're gonna reach out to you at some point. They like that. I'm sure. We love you, John. Have a nice day. Oh, and send me that recording at the end.
Will do.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.